Aloha, my name is Eric DeCarlo, and I'm a professor in the Department of Oceanography at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. The University of Hawaii Sea Grant College Program, otherwise known as Hawaii Sea Grant, is based at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Hawaii Sea Grant supports an innovative program of research, education, and extension services directed to the improved understanding and stewardship of coastal and marine resources of the state, region, and nation. Hawaii Sea Grant Podcast number 10, Carbon and the Ocean.
Aloha and welcome to our 321 podcast. My name is Mahea.
This is Rachel.
This is Eric.
And I'm Lucie.
And we are part of Hawaii Sea Grant and the University of Hawaii located in Honolulu, Hawaii.
This podcast features research supported by Hawaii Sea Grant. Each episode will highlight a new project and the people that make the project possible.
We will ask these researchers for 3 words that describe their research. Give them 2 minutes to explain how their research benefits communities here in Hawaii, and end by asking them to provide one thing they know about each other than their research. So 3 words, 2 minutes, and 1 thing. It's a 3-2-1 podcast. All right, guys, so do you know what your carbon footprint is?
Yeah, in theory.
Yeah, generally.
I was surprised to see that when I changed some things on the online calculator, I wear contacts, but if I switch to wearing glasses, that lowers my carbon footprint.
I mean, when you put it that way, I guess you don't really think about how much we can alter our carbon footprint just by changing small things in our daily lives. You guys study carbon, but in the ocean, not the atmosphere, right?
Well, actually, we study carbon dioxide, but it's pretty much the same substance that goes between the ocean, the atmosphere, and the land.
So what are 3 words that describe your research?
Well, probably the simplest would just to say land, ocean, atmosphere.
We're learning about carbon dioxide and ocean chemistry in this podcast, specifically how carbon dioxide affects coastal life and coral reefs here in Hawaii. Here to share their research are Dr. Eric DeCarlo and his graduate student, Lucie, Knor.
Before we ask you how your research benefits communities here in Hawaii, let's talk about a few scientific words. 3 words that you use a lot in your research are carbon dioxide, ocean acidification, and monitoring. Can you explain what these words mean?
Okay, so carbon dioxide is a molecule, it's a gas. It occurs in the atmosphere naturally, but its concentrations have been increasing because of us burning fossil fuels mostly over the last decades and centuries. And that leads to climate change. It's the main driver of anthropogenic, so man-made climate change.
So ocean acidification is a little bit of a misnomer because the ocean is really a basic medium. It's not acidic. But as we add carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and the ocean takes up that carbon dioxide, it actually increases the acidity of the water. And this is what we consider ocean acidification. And that has all sorts of implications for the biology in the ocean, as well as certain chemical reactions.
And monitoring.
Okay, so monitoring basically means looking at conditions, a variety of different conditions, chemical conditions, physical conditions, over time.
So tell us, in 2 minutes or less, how your research benefits the communities here in Hawaii.
I would say that the main benefit is that our project is a big part of describing and finding out how and why coastal ecosystems here are changing. And since basically everybody in Hawaii, or even people visiting, profit from coastal ecosystems, that's a really big benefit that we're giving to the community.
And the benefits come in various forms because there's obviously the tourism aspect, the aesthetic aspects of coral reefs, but there's actually other aspects, the food services provided. We call these ecosystem services. So food sources, Also, reefs protect our coasts from storm surges, tsunami. So there's all sorts of benefits from healthy coral reefs. And if they're dissolving faster than they're accreting, you're going to lose that protection. You're going to probably lose all the fishes that are there, so you lose a food resource. And if you don't have the pretty corals to look, the tourists are not going to be that interested in going snorkeling. And then there's the economic benefit as well from the tourist activity.
Let's recap. When asked to provide 3 words that describe your research, you said land, ocean, and atmosphere. You provided definitions for 3 scientific words that are commonly used in your research. These words were carbon dioxide, ocean acidification, and monitoring. We've learned about your research and how your research will help communities here in Hawaii. So let's get technical. How do you do what you do?
Well, we have this network of 4 buoys that make these what we call autonomous, so automatic measurements every 3 hours. But we also carry out experiments at our buoys where we manipulate the environment, or we take other biological measurements, or look at a broader area than where our buoy is. And then our buoys are also part of what's called the Global Ocean Acidification Network, which consists of a network of monitoring stations around the world.
Okay, and what I actually have to do for this project is I get to swim out to the buoys, or take a boat out there, and every 2 weeks I take samples, water samples right next to the buoys that we use to validate the measurements that the buoy automatically transmits every 3 hours.
Is it hard work?
I always like to say a bad day in the field is better than a good day in the office.
It's true.
So it's an absolute pleasure to work on the ocean as far as I'm concerned, and Lucie seems to have the same feeling.
I was going to say, you also take water samples, so some of that time must be spent in the lab.
Oh yeah.
How does that compare?
The majority of that time is actually spent in the lab. I spend more time in the lab than in the field because it takes quite a while to analyze every individual water sample. And the way the measurements work is that you basically have to spend a few hours in the lab just preparing the instrument and getting it ready to run your samples. So they end up being really long days normally, just for it to be worth putting in those initial few hours.
Well, that's a wrap. But before we go, we want to ask you, Eric, what's one thing you know about Lucie other than her research?
Muay Thai. She's a martial arts specialist and very good at it.
I think there's a little bit more going on here. I think she takes water samples during the day and then she fights crime at night. I think
sounds like a superhero.
Superhero, yeah.
I do. I think there's a little bit of a, secret here that we're touching upon.
Well, Lucie, do you know any secrets about Eric other than his research?
I do know that he once got a big speeding ticket in France.
Oh man!
I actually proudly have posted that speeding ticket, and I was born in France, and I speak fluent French, and I knew that I was going 50 kilometers per hour over the speed limit.
Whoa!
Because I was frustrated with someone that had been not moving very fast for a long time, and then they sped up on a straightaway, and I still wanted to pass them. So I pretended to not speak French. I got away with a €90 fine, and at the end of it, the policeman, who was absolutely amazingly polite, said to me, even though he realized that I was born in France, he said to me, he says, if you were a French citizen, you would have lost your license today.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay, so you're a felon. And
No.
Is that what's going on here? Just kidding. Stay tuned for our next podcast, and mahalo for listening. Aloha.
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 This Hawai'i Seagrant 321 podcast featured 3 songs: Happiness by bensound.com, Ukulele by bensound.com, and Cute by bensound.com. Find it on iTunes or bensound.com.